Hello guys and welcome to episode 9 of the So Tell Me podcast. I'm here with Claire.
Hello.
And today we're going to be talking about brands.
We are indeed. We're going to be talking about how as a retailer we select which brands to stock, but then also as a consumer what you should look out for, what you should consider when selecting which brand to go with.
How do we start?
Well, why don't we start with how you selected the brands that we stock as a retailer?
Well, 37 years ago, unfortunately I wasn't around to choose the brands. However,
This is very true.
well, obviously the core of it started with Madeira Threads. So Barnyarns as a retailer started with Madeira Threads going to the end consumer. I think when Dad chose the thread brands to kind of push forward, it was a culmination of quality brands. It was quite a limited amount of brands at the time, and it was very much trying to position ourselves as like a specialist thread retailer. So we had Madeira Threads, we had Superior Threads. We later took on Isocord, YLI at the time. So there was kind of like the major brands, and then brands that he could almost be passionate about and get behind, which is why John's Jokes and John's Newsletter starts.
Yep.
So that was how it all originated.
Interesting. So would you say as a retailer that it is important to consider your brand and your brand ethos, things like that, when considering whether to stock them or not?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, as a business, there has to be the economics of, running the brand in terms of how big is the brand, because, for us, as you know, when it comes to thread, there is 400 colours within one weight of brand, but there's maybe 12 different weights within that brand.
Yeah.
So very quickly, when you're buying thread by a box of 6 or 10, it's very easy to suddenly have, 30, 40, 50 grand's worth of stock on one brand. So when we kind of built it originally with like Madeira, Superior, it was very selective because it was an organic expansion. So he couldn't just go and spend 300,000 quid on stock. It had to be built up over time. So in terms of, an economic decision, it has to be something that does make sense. So when it kind of started, we've benefited from 30x amount of years of growth inside the business, therefore the stock has grown. But that has to be a consideration, as well as the fact that we have to be behind the actual thread that we're selling as well. We don't want it to break. We want it to be good quality. We want it to have really good marketing backing. We want it to have good support from manufacturer as well, because if the thread's out of stock, we have an issue then having to communicate that to the customer, and it just becomes a bit of a nightmare. Yeah. And we still face those problems now, 30 plus years on.
Definitely. And it sounds like a lot of the things that as a retail you have to consider is the same things that customers consider when
100%.
selecting the brands. Quality, consistency, cost as well is a really big thing, and making sure that you're using something that's a really good quality without it literally costing the earth is really important to the consumer.
And I think from a consumer's perspective, we see the quilts and we see the garments people make. It's ours, and it's the fabric that they're using. It's really expensive stuff, and you almost can't afford for your machine to just mess up the stitch with the thread that you're using, and you want to put good thread into your machine to get the best results. But also, we don't want to be spending an absolute fortune, so you've got to find that fine balance.
Yeah,
and that was definitely how it was with thread when we started with thread. And then, fast forward, you've got your haberdashery, your stabiliser, your fabrics and all that sort of stuff. And then you kind of look at different retailers like Fleasoline and I can't think of any of the fabric retailers. Oh yeah, like Bozal, Thermoware, all of these different suppliers that provide good quality products in an accessible way that is never out of stock. Because being out of stock is the biggest nightmare ever. I hate being out of stock. It
definitely is. And I think it really puts us as a retailer in the middle, because we're frustrated on behalf of the customers because it's out of stock, but then the customers are frustrated with us because we're the retailer trying to sell it to them. So it is a very difficult balance.
Well, before we went into a computer system 6 years ago, we literally on a Monday morning, and I worked in order process when we did this, we would go onto the computer, we would download all the orders off Amazon, eBay, our website, and literally you'd have like a pile of orders on A4 paper that big, and you literally have all your pickers come in, and you just go and give them a wedge each and say, right, just go and pick them. They'd go around and pick them through the shop. You wouldn't know if it was in stock or out of stock. Right. So they'd get to where they were expecting the stock. Oh, it's not in stock. Mark it down with a black pen, and then bring that basket with half completed order back through to the office, and then we'd have to raise a back order for that order, and then that basket would go on a rack. it was like such a manual process, and we had all sorts of issues because obviously we couldn't communicate that to the customer, which then delayed the orders. And then suddenly you're upsetting the customer. We're annoyed because we haven't got the stock to provide them, but we physically couldn't do anything about it before this new system came in. So when it came in and suddenly it automates the process, you know, we can part ship, we can do all this. That's why I would say maybe only in the last year we've really got good. Yeah. But it's taken so long to get to that point because you've got 35,000 products.
Yeah. And I think that's the key really is, you know, it's all well and good saying, oh, you know, we're going to have fabulous stock management, but when you're looking at a product that is so small like thread, and then how vast the stock levels are in the shop, it's a mammoth job to do all your stock taking and ensure that everything's correct.
I honestly don't understand how like businesses do it when they haven't got like a dedicated purchase manager, because you know, for us, we, you know, let's say we do 8 major brands and then we do all the subsidiaries of those with the different weights and different colours. You know, there's a real issue with something called like stock drift. So, you know, if we sell a classic 4911 colour 1052, it's like a magenta, that one colour on a 1,000 metre spool might only sell once every 5 months. Yep. But when you're down to your last spool, I then have to order 6 in once that last one's sold. Yep. So, you know, you've effectively got potentially 3-4 years of stock sat on one spool. Yep. And it's very easy to escalate and just grow your inventory and actually have a real cash flow issue. Yeah. So from a business perspective, thread's a nightmare. Yeah. So that's why not many people do it, and you've got to be really on it to be able to do it properly.
Definitely. So moving away from threads and haberdashery, let's go into the machine side of things. So obviously we know you started with FAF.
Yeah, I didn't have a choice.
Shh, we don't tell them that.
No. We did have a choice. Basically, when it all started, FAF was the only player that we could kind of, you know, get into bed with. There's a big political ice cream war standard with sewing machines, and at the time, FAF was the only brand that we kind of weren't jumping on anyone's toes with, within like a radius. Yeah.
So if we give a little bit of a peek behind the curtain here, and I think we're allowed to say this, most brands have a radius where, you know, they have a retailer and no one within, let's say, 10 miles, 20 miles is able to also stock that.
It's honestly, it's the most old-fashioned system I've ever heard. And I've said this from the start, and I said this as a little scrappy do when I'm not selling any machines, and I'll still say it now when we're the big dogs. It's absolutely ridiculous. The way in which the market's moving, everything's online, everything's in a different way of working. Machines are sold at exhibitions, but they're then purchased online. The idea of this like antiquated, right, well, you're within a 30-mile radius of someone else, it's so backwards for business, and I don't think it does anyone any favours.
I think it definitely limits the brands as well, because, you know, you might have retailers in all your areas in the UK, but if they're not actually pushing the brand,
thing is, then this worked 15 years ago when every single shop had an engineer in the shop. Yeah. The difference being now is there's hardly any engineers, so you go to your local dealer, a lot of the time, you know, they haven't even got an engineer in the shop, and actually they're really kind of lacking that support. So for me, you know, as a bigger dealer who has the network for the you know, dealerships for the actual after sales and repair, it's a really important aspect of that. And now people can understand that it's linked with a door-to-door service. Keep your packaging and then everything's sorted. So everything is changing, and you know we've had our hiccups over the year with certain brands, and you know that has all stemmed from this political radius of geography, and it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. It really stunts everyone in the industry. So we started with FAF. Yeah. You then went on to choose which brand?
So we actually got approached by Bernina. So they saw that we were doing really well with FAF, and Bernina came to us and said, look, we see what you're doing. We think you represent our brand well. I went for a meeting in London with the big bosses, and we basically got invited to stock the range of Bernina. Now, obviously being a top-of-the-range Rolls-Royce brand in the industry, it's something that it kind of is very prestigious, and it gives you a bit of a,
luxury.
We're a bit of a luxury feel now. So we took Bernina on, which was really exciting, and we had Bernina and FAF for about 3 years, I think.
Right, okay.
So those were our two brands, and then obviously we put Will through all the training with the Bernina machines. Ben's done a lot of that as well, so we've really invested in both those brands. And I think very quickly we built ourselves into probably one of the biggest players in both. And that worked really well for us.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, it's interesting as well because you also have value in the aftercare support and the technical side of things as well. Not all retailers, find value in that, whereas that's something that's really important to us, to make sure that if a customer has a question, they can come back regardless of the brand.
100%. And also long warranties. That makes a massive difference. So the fact that both the brands that we had long warranties, so that kind of put a bit more emphasis in, right, well, they're going to sell us this product, we believe in it. So that was really important as well. And then from there, we got Janome, which was a massive deal for us because Janome was one that we were really chasing for like 5 years to kind of open us up into the market of like entry to beginner to mid-range. And then Babylock for the overlockers, which is how our conversation started.
It definitely did, yeah.
So for me, it's like we've now got the quadfecta of, I've got Faf, we've got Benina, we've got Janome, we've got Babylock, and then, you know, the last one, which is paving the way for sewing and embroidery on entry to mid, is Happy Japan.
Which
I want no more brands. That's all I'm doing now.
Famous last words.
No more brands.
So what do you feel is the most important thing for when you're selecting a brand? When you've selected all these brands, what are the, say, 4 things you've looked for?
From a consumer perspective, easy to use, good quality. If they need a repair, easy to repair, and you know, in terms of the market, you know, well priced. From a business perspective, always in stock. Easy warranty process for us to then repair it with the right parts. You know, we need to be getting the right profit margins, otherwise we can't grow our infrastructure and make it work. And there was another point I completely forgot. Brands that just align with our ethos and what we do. And I think those are the most important things for me. What about you?
I think it's interesting because when you first proposed this topic for the podcast, and I went, I know exactly what I'm going to say. And actually, on my creative hour in the car on the way home, I sat and thought about it a bit more and went, do you know what? Actually, it's not as clear cut as I thought it was. I think my initial reaction was, well, I tend to always go with, if I'm looking for a sewing machine, for instance, a brand that I know is reliable, it's got a good reputation. But the more I thought about that, the more certain brands came to mind that they maybe are well known and they have a good reputation, but that may not actually be accurate anymore, unfortunately. So it's being able to suss out, okay, it's a really well-known brand, but why is it a really well-known brand? Is that because it's a really quality product, or is it just because it's got a massive long history?
I think, do you know what, it's like, it's a really good point, because when you look at brands out of sewing, just in general, you wonder how many brands have built this reputation, built this name, and then almost just dined on it for 20 years. And I think it's a very fine line between, you know, almost being arrogant with, right, I've made a brand now, I'm just going to let it run and sell. And I think for us, we found that with some brands, you know, you can't just sit on the coattails of a brand. You've got to work, and you've got to, you know, really be in front of the customer with social media, your emails, and all the rest. Because if you don't, you know, your brand loses its identity very quickly. But that's why it was always really important with Sew Centre as a kind of really global brand, which we want it to be. It had to kind of align with those principles. But when you actually think about brands, you don't actually think about how much it makes your business and how important it actually is. And it is.
It's really important. I mean,
it is important.
You do get customers that approach us and go, you know, do you have this brand? And, you know, 9 times out of 10 we go, yes, absolutely we do. But then there is the occasion where you go, unfortunately, no, we don't.
I think the difference for us now is that when we first started selling Faf and we did all the shows, we'd get people come up to us all the time and say, oh, really like you, thank you for the demonstration, do you sell X brand or do you sell this brand? And at the time we said no, and we really pushed why they needed a Faf. And the irony now is actually, I think we sell more Fafs by the fact that we offer, in our opinion, the best brands. And we're almost just like, well, we stock all the brands. We want to help you actually make a educated decision now. So rather than us putting something down, you know, your throat of, oh, you need to buy this because of X, Y, Z, you don't need to. You can just look at your budget, look at what you can afford within the spec, and go for what you need.
Yeah, and we always try and advise what is best for the customer rather than it being, you know, oh, you know, we know that we have the best profit margin on this brand, so we'll always push that one. It's not the case at all. It's got to tick the boxes for the customer, because ultimately, at the end of the day, if it doesn't, it's going to return to us, and that's the last thing we want.
Honestly, I'd rather not sell a machine to someone. You know, when you get someone come up to you and, you know, you don't force them to buy a machine, but, you know, if you kind of really push something down, a narrative down someone, it never works well. They're always the customers that you have the issues with, and that's not their fault. That's just that you've sold them the wrong machine. So we'd never try and be like, oh, you really need to go for this £6,000 machine, because it just is always going to have problems. And coming back to what you said about the brands, that's why we stock the brands we do, because we tend to have very low return rate, just in the sense of there's never any issues with the machines. So yeah. Do you know what? I've never thought about brands until we brought that up. And actually, when you talk about it, it is such an important part of the business.
It's crucial.
But like, I've never thought about that. I've always just gone, right, well, we really need Janome, let's do what we can to make it work. But you've never actually thought about the impact of how a brand has on the business.
It really is the foundation of the business as well, if you think about it, because it brings customers in from all sorts of different walks. Whether they see that there's a machine on the sewing bee and they go, I really want to get that machine, or whether they've seen it in a magazine or it's been passed down to them, whatever it is. The brands are really crucial to our kind of notability in the industry as well. Interestingly, the thing that really made me go, maybe I need to rethink what my initial priorities would be as a consumer and looking at brands is Happy Japan. Because, and I'm going to be 100% honest here, when I came into this job and you presented me with this brand, I must admit I had a bit of a panic. Because I went, ooh, I don't know this brand. It has no kind of foundation in the domestic market in the UK. How is this going to go? Because we don't have a reputation, we don't have a history to kind of lean back on that is widely known. But actually, having used the machines and really, really tested them out, I was so surprised and so impressed that it's made me rethink my stance on, I always go for a brand that's really well known.
I don't know if this is TMI, like too much information, but when we first had the conversation with Happy Japan, I literally turned around to them and said, can we rebrand the name? Because I really wasn't sure it would fit with the UK market. And actually, I think the more you do your demonstrations, the more you research it, the more you see the videos come through, I think it does work. And I think, like anything, like any other brand in the UK, it doesn't mean anything until you make it something. So, I think if we continue to do what we're doing, which is just get the product out there and show people, like Ben said to you today, we had our first part exchange form come through where the customer's chosen brand was Happy Japan. And that's
which
a big
is
moment.
monumental.
It's a big moment for us because we've never had, it's brand new to the market, and the fact that someone's choosing that brand over the other ones is quite fun. Don't get me wrong, we love all the brands, and we want all the brands to do really well, because ultimately we need the diversity in the business to make it work. But you've got to give it a little plug every now and again.
No, we're really pleased with how it's going, and I think the fact that the customers and the public have been so receptive to a brand that usually people would be a bit like, oh, I don't know, but especially, and I hate to mention Festival Quilts again,
I know,
we love it.
It's our trigger word.
It is, but people came up and go, I've never heard of you guys, I really want to know more, which was brilliant, because my real concern was that people would go, oh, I've not heard that brand, I'm going to stay clear. So it was really nice and really encouraging that people did have that response.
Especially when there's so much like instability in the general market. Like, we speak to all the dealers, and it's not the best time. Things are difficult and people are struggling, and the fact that we can almost come through that and we've got something that is doing really well, it's great.
Yeah, it is. It definitely
That's
is.
enough plugs for today, I think.
It is, yeah.
Otherwise, we are going to look slightly biased.
Absolutely. Before we close off this segment about brands, you have a funny story you want to tell us.
I'm not sure it's funny. I think it's very politically charged, and I'm not going to talk about any brands. I'm not going to talk about any specifics, but I do feel like it's a bit tea.
Yeah.
So I was talking to this brand for years and years, and it was the basically decision to either take on this brand or another brand. Like speaking to the retrospective relevant people, weekly, daily, to kind of really progress it forward. And there was a business for sale in an area fairly local to us, and I was speaking to the owner for 2-3 years about the potential of acquiring it.
Right.
The price was never right, it never worked out, but he stocked 2 of the brands at the time that I didn't have.
Right.
So I think the angle that he had was, well, you can buy the goodwill but also buy said brands. We had our team go through it multiple times. It just never worked. The numbers didn't add up. It just was something that would never work for us at the time. And we basically I was always following it, always spoke to him, always in very good faith in nature. And nothing ever materialised from it. until I was playing paddle one winter's day on an evening with my friends, and we thought, I know, let's go for a beer after work.
Mm-hmm.
So we went to the beer place. The pub.
You went to an establishment that sells alcoholic spirits.
And we sat there, and there was clearly a celebration going on, and it's quite a quiet pub, so there wasn't loads of people in there, but there was a celebration going on in the corner.
Mm-hmm.
And one of our friends was stood up with his beer, and this person walked past him and almost nudged him. They ended up having a conversation, just got into a chat, and then 10 minutes later, said person came and sat down on our table.
Right.
So we're having a conversation. The question was asked, well, what are you celebrating? Said person said, well, you've just bought a new sewing machine business. So this is why we love being able to clip and edit the podcast, because we have had to just unfortunately blooper something that we absolutely cannot talk about. We've got a very sensitive story that we would love to share with you, but unfortunately we will get in far too much trouble.
But if you see us in person, why not ask and see what happens?
Moving on.
So, you have a funny story for us this week.
I do, yeah. What I was saying to Claire before we got into the podcast suite was every story that I have seems to be at my detriment.
And the point I made was that's what we like about them. So, crack on. Give us a story.
So, I'll cast the time back to when I was 19.
Oh.
It was a job at somewhere called the Kestrel in Harrogate. I was a waiter. I'd been there for 3 weeks. And I was unaware that when you work on a Sunday at a pub, you are doing the roast dinner shift.
Arguably the best shift.
Not when you've heard this story.
Oh, gosh.
So I'd been there 3 weeks. I didn't really understand what hospitality was. I've never been a waiter before. And I was the person who was responsible for running the food from the pass.
Okay.
Now, if anyone's ever been to the Kestrel in Harrogate, it's a very long pub. It's got 3 subsequent rooms, a kitchen, but it's probably about a good kilometre from the kitchen all the way to the 3rd room.
Is it bad that I'm now just thinking about roast dinner?
Yeah, it is.
Carry on.
But the ceilings were very low as well. Very low ceilings. I'm 6'2", so I'm not 6'1.5", but we won't fall over it. Anyway, so I was running the food, so I literally went into the kitchen because they rang that bell.
Yeah.
I run in. They're giving us flannels or something to carry the tea towels to carry the food, but obviously the plates are very hot to keep the food warm. These were the first 2 plates on the whole lunch service, and they were at the top of the pile where the lights had been on them for a good 3 hours. So anyway, so they serve the food onto the plates. Service, grab the plates, pick them up, and as soon as I pick them up, I'm like, fuck, they're hot. Me, they're hot, right? But anyway, I was really wanting to impress. So get the plates, and all I'm thinking about is hot, 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 hot. Back out of the door and start walking. This table's table 73, which is in the 3rd room. Right?
No.
It's a 30-second walk on a good day. So I get out and I start panicking because I'm thinking these plates are actually burning my fingerprints off. So I get through the 1st room, whoosh, 2nd room, whoosh. And as soon as I get to the 3rd room, I was in such inconsolable pain with the plates, I forgot that I had to duck my head to get through the 3rd room. And I'm not even joking. I smashed my head as hard as possible into one beam, right? I fell to my knees. with my plate still in the hand. And I started crying.
With the food still in?
With the food still in my hands.
You know what? Bravo.
I literally, sobbing, got up and went and put the food onto the table and had to go and sit out in the back for 2 hours.
That's hilarious. I might make you reenact that.
I've got maybe 4 or 5 hospitality related stories that maybe we can turn into a bit of a series.
I was just thinking I also have a few, so yeah, definitely.
Maybe we do that for the next 10 episodes. Honestly,
we'd fill 10 episodes easily. The joys. I'm just surprised you worked in hospitality.
Yeah, I did for about 4 years.
Really?
I was actually 18 when I started, so I don't know what I was doing for the first 12 months, but I didn't know how to hold a plate. And then I did it till I was 22.
I didn't know how to hold a plate.
Yeah, that was really bad.
That's going to be the title of the episode.
So
I didn't know how to hold a plate. If you would like to send us your funny story, whether it be sewing related or not, you can send it to claire@sewcentre.co.uk. I will leave that email address in the description below or in the caption, depending on where you are watching or listening to this. 2 truths and a lie.
Let's jump into it.
Let's go. So, your 2 truths and a lie from last week, can you remember what they were?
No.
Well, that's not great because I don't either. Okay, so we've now established what Callum's 2 truths and a lie were from last week.
So in no particular order, then shall I just read the statement and then we can just quickly go? Okay.
Yeah.
So the first one was I had a clothing brand called Bespoke.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
I can imagine this to be true.
Yeah,
it's the type
true.
of thing.
It's true. So I had it for about 2 years. I sold 4 sweatshirts. So moving swiftly on. The next one was I had a cheese business called saycheese.com.
Yes.
Which was a derivative of the company I used to work for.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought you could definitely make loads of money at.
Yeah, because you liked the profit margin.
Yeah, it's absolute rubbish. It was completely made up.
Really?
Yeah, completely made up. Yeah.
So that must mean that your face masks and weights statement was true. I'm going to need some more context here.
I'm not proud of it. So basically, me and my friend Tom thought it would be I thought it would be a great idea to sell face masks because I thought there would be a big demand. Still to this day, I'm not really too sure what Tom did. But it was fun and he came along for the ride. I'm joking. He did a lot of the logistics of the dispatch. We ended up having 60 sewers sewing for us.
Wow.
And we were selling like Liberty face masks to literally everyone all over the UK. So it was pretty fun for like 3 weeks and then it all stopped. So that was the face masks. And then the weights. I used to be a little bit of a wheeler dealer. I basically also found that there was an opportunity to buy weights in big quantity. And as COVID hit, all the gyms closed. And everything shut down. So I was one of those guys selling said weights. And selling a lot. I think we sold like 20 ton of weights.
Wow.
In not a long time. So yeah, it was pretty crazy.
Well, I never would have guessed that. I genuinely thought that
really
one
random,
was the
isn't
lie.
It? Yeah, no, it was true.
Wow.
So we did that for like literally 2 months. And to be fair, we had a really fun time doing it. Like, it was just a bit of fun. I stayed at his for like 2 months and yeah, it was kind of in between. I kind of had to say to Dad, do you mind if I just work 3 days a week for a few months? Because it was just absolutely mental. We thought we'd become millionaires and then it all just died in about 3 weeks.
Oh, what a shame.
Yeah.
And you came back to the sewing industry.
Yeah, back to the sewing world.
Fabulous.
Where I belong.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was it. So what are your 2 truths and a lie?
So I've actually decided to add an extra one in.
Okay.
Or switch out one of my 2 truths and a lie because one of your stories earlier reminded me of something, which is quite funny. So, in no particular order. Statement number 1. I may or may not have broken multiple blades on my demonstration Babylock Aspire by sewing over pins.
Okay.
Statement number 2. I have bought over 100 metres of fabric in one go.
100 metres? That's quite a lot. No, surely not. Okay. What's the third one?
I bought a lot of fabric while I was at university.
100 metres in one go? No, I don't believe it.
Okay. And then my final statement is, as a child, I walked into a glass door at my dad's office. And as a result, they now have on every single glass panel in the building the company logo.
To prevent it from happening? You see, the problem is, Claire, I know you too well now, so I know exactly which ones are a lie and which ones are the truth. But that is crazy. I've actually got a counter story for that if it's true.
Ooh,
Can I just really give you a quick bit of trivia? So, how old were you? If this lie or truth happened?
I would say under 8.
Okay, so I was 3 and I went on my first holiday with my family. We were in Mallorca and we arrived there, put the bags down, and I saw a swimming pool beyond the glass door thing. Sprinted. I went straight through it. I went through the bifold windows at 3 years old. And basically, Mum and Dad were putting away the suitcase in the room. I wasn't even screaming. I was just on the floor. And they came out like...
in shock.
I was literally, it was mental. My dad picked me up and had to like run me up the hill to the hospital. I was like that far away from like a major nerve in my head.
Oh my god!
Like it's actually mental.
Wait, so you ran into a glass panel and shattered it?
And I ran through it and like completely. I've got a scar on my knee there. That's from that when I was 3.
Wow!
I literally completely cut myself up. How bad is that?
And your parents only noticed.
No, as soon as they walked out the room, they literally like, what the hell is going on?
So they didn't hear the glass shatter.
They obviously, no, as in that's what spurred them to come out. The craziest thing is, I don't know if I fabricated this in my head. I can remember it. I think I might have made it up. But but I was telling the story back to them like 5 years ago, and it was exactly how it was in the place, and they've never told me before.
Wow.
Anyway, sorry, I've completely story.
That's okay. It's very interesting. Well, come back next week to find out which was a truth and a lie.
I think the lie is the 100 metres, but let's leave it to these guys to tell you. I can't see how you bought 100 metres of fabric in one go. That's mental.
You shall see. You shall see.
Should we wrap it up?
Let's wrap it up. Do you want to do it?
No, you can do it today. It hurts my brain too much.
Okay. So thank you for watching episode 9 of the So Tell Me podcast. We'd love to hear your thoughts about selecting brands, what you think as a consumer, or if you're a retailer, we'd love to know your thoughts too. So please drop your thoughts in the comments below. That would be fantastic. If you want to see more from us, you can find us on all of our social media platforms, which includes Instagram, Facebook, TikTok and YouTube. And you can find us across 4 different accounts. Yes, I said 4. Barnyarns, So Centre, Happy Japan UK and the So Tell Me podcast channel. So we will see you next week for our final episode of the series. So definitely one not to miss.
It's going to be a good one. Many stories.
Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.